Well, Nate, it's pretty quiet out here. Everyone's off doing their own thing. I haven't seen Jericho in a while. You know where he's at?
Yeah, him and James are visiting Strawberry. Apparently there's talk of a train coming through Valentine in a couple of days. They went up to go check it out, speak to a couple of our associates about it. Yeah, reminds me that Jack's out back east visiting his sister.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, reminds me that I should go visit my family sometime. Speaking of, did I ever tell you about my brother?
No, I thought you was a lonely boy.
No. Yeah, good old Julius Denver, my younger brother. He was a little bit slower on the uptake. Old Pa, he used to take me out back, teach me how to ride a horse, shoot a gun. All the things that a man must learn when you're in the Denver family. But old Julius, he was always slower on the uptake. I remember he got so angry, he would watch me go out and ride my dad's horse. His name was Apollo.
Oh, Apollo.
Yeah, back one morning I wake up to hearing a crashing and commotion out at the stables. Oh, Apollo's out in our yard. I go out and see that old Julius, he fell off the back of Apollo. It's terrible thing to think about.
Was he all right? What happened to him?
Oh, yeah, he's fine. He's just dumb as hell. He had a little bit of a lame leg, and shortly after I went up and joined with the union, he departed out. He got married to some Choctaw woman. It's the best food I've ever had, I'll tell you what.
There we go.
Now, listen, that isn't to downplay your cooking, Jeff, all right?
Yeah, you better not, because I make the best goddamn soup. In fact, you're holding it right now. If I'm not mistaken.
It's delicious, don't get me wrong, but I understand, we got to do what we can with the salt and pepper that we have. You got to make do with what you have.
Well, it doesn't help that Jericho, no, in fact, just about everybody else kind of tends to hog that stuff whenever they get their own bowl. It's tough being the cook.
I remember a couple nights ago, both Jericho and James and you all having a bunch of that stew that I made. Man.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's
now
pretty
that I
good.
mention it, we got Jericho, Jack, James, Jeffrey. It's a lot of J names. Maybe I should just change my damn name to Jathan.
Jathan John Denver.
Yeah, I don't know how much my mom and pa would like that too much.
It all depends on how much you see them.
Yeah, that's true. Did I ever tell you about my mom and my pa, how they first met?
No, I thought you was a lonely boy.
Well, I have a brother.
Really?
Yeah, well, I have a mother and a father. Back in the day, my mother, she was actually a pirate. She broke off from the British Isles, Back in the day, she was known as Black Eye Miranda Harlow.
I think I've heard that name before.
You very well might have. One day, my dad, big old Malcolm, he was coming out of the seas just outside the Caribbean. Well, she walked up upon him and saw this handsome man, or at least that's what he tells me. Took him as a hostage on board her ship, because apparently the Brits were coming after her. They wanted to sink her down, and she figured, maybe if I had myself a British officer, maybe, just maybe, they might let me go. Well, Pa, he was just squandering out there in the Caribbean. He had himself a pet mongoose out riding his shoulder.
Pet goddamn mongoose. You fucking
No
kidding
kidding.
me?
I swear on my mother's life. Pet mongoose that would sit on his shoulder, and when he got hungry, he would nibble on his neck. Pa got so mad at him. His name was Flint. Yep. He said he looked like a flint and steel when he started firing with him. But I digress. Back to what I was saying. So yeah, good old Ma went and took a hostage on board of her ship. And Black Eye Miranda Harlow, she's known for taking no prisoners. So taking a British man, as a hostage was quite the story to be told.
Well, that's for sure.
Yeah, well,
you're telling it right now.
One day they come up upon a British man of war, open fire, start shooting at the ship because they know it's her ship. She lost a couple men. As soon as they're about to get parlayed, she goes and grabs Pa by the neck, holds her rapier up to his throat, and she says, "Get back, and you better stay back, or else I'll cut this man's throat right here.
Very romantic.
I'm not afraid to tear no damn blood, spill it on the ship's deck if I have to. Apparently the captain takes a step back. He says, we don't need to have no damn problems here. Surrender yourself, let the man go, and I'll let the rest of your crew live. Now, I don't know if you've ever messed around with no British officers, but I'll tell you right now, it's a crock of shit.
Yeah. I've had my fair share of British officers when I was over in Scotland.
Yeah. Well,
Was it Ireland? I don't know.
when the law came down on him, Paul almost gave his life protecting Ma. For some reason, he felt duty bound to save her life. I don't know why. Well, but that's it. That's pretty much how, when they got back to the United States, or at least what was about to be, you know, they settled down in the South, just the two of them. Cranked out me and my brother. And yeah, he went out, that is, Julius, that is, he went out on his own, made his own way. You know, he's just a farmer now with his wife. They
Very
make food and
respectable.
all that. You know what? He's a good man.
Yeah.
He grew up well. He, like I said, he was always a little lily-livered. But just because you don't want to see no action in your life doesn't mean you're any less of a man.
Yeah, we all can't be our own Nathan Denvers.
That's right.
That's damn right.
Yeah. Hope Jack's doing all right. You know, I heard it gets cold in the east.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I know you were over with your family back in Ireland at the time, but
Yeah.
during the war, you know, Jack and I made ourselves a little bit of nicknames. He used to
What's
call
that?
me Storm Rider.
Storm Rider.
It was.
That
Listen,
is the dumbest
it is pretty
damn
dumb, but
shit.
so back in the day, one night I get called up. You know, one of my captains, he rings me. He tells me, "Hey, you know, looks like we got some graybacks, and they're raising hell at a local settlement. You know, Native Americans, Indians. They said they were taking hostages, right?
Yeah.
And there had a fire going on, and they said, oh, you know, it's too bad, you know, we're gonna have to lose some lives of them, whatever. You know, there was something into my stomach that told me, you know, not gonna let that happen. So I ride out there towards the settlement on my horse. Storm kicks up, lightning striking, pouring down rain. It was a hell of a night. And I roll up on them graybacks and I see them tying up all them Indians. It looks like they were gonna burn them alive. I come in there with my pistols blazing. Bah, bah, bah. I take them out one by one. So when I go ahead and I cut them loose, they looked at me and they called me Storm Rider.
You know, with a little bit of context, it's not that stupid.
Yeah, well, it's still a little silly.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, Jack actually had a little bit of a nickname himself. He and I got into a little bit of trouble one day. We were on the tail end of the patrol, you know, we were moving from one fort to the other, just outside of Missouri. And a couple of graybacks, they jumped us, you know. A couple of rogues, you might even call them. They knocked his ass out. Dragged us back to their fort. They set us up. Jack looks at the leader dead in the eyes and he says, listen to me, you son of a bitch. If I beat you in a game of cards, you gotta let me and my boy go. And if we lose, then you can go ahead and chop all my fingers off. And you might be wondering, well, that's a little strange, but a man with no fingers can't pull the trigger of a gun.
Also, it is Jack.
It is Jack. He's a little crazy. Well, but anyway, my man sits this captain down, right? Looks at him dead in the eyes. So he calls, the grayback calls one of his lieutenants over. Lieutenant pulls out a deck of cards. Jack looks at me, shoots me that look of, I know something's up, right? We both knew it was pretty likely we were going to lose. And if we didn't lose, then they wouldn't let us out anyway. Plays 2 cards, sets them down. Captain puts 2 cards down for himself. He looks at me with a shit-eating grin. And I said, this man has to be bluffing. There's no way that man's going to give me that look that he has actual good cards. Because like I said, he knew something was up. Something's fishy about the whole situation. So the captain turns his cards over, right?
Right.
He's got 2 kings. And at that point, I was like, well, all right.
There go my fingers.
There goes his fingers, not mine. I didn't promise no finger chopping.
No,
they're probably going to take him anyway.
Yeah, they're probably going to do it anyway.
Goddamn gray bags. But anyway, he goes, looks at him dead in the eyes. And Jack flips his cards over and says, ace is high. And so they were. Captain honored his word. Let us go. We ran back to our leaders, told them exactly where they were holed up. By the time we stormed it the next day, they were long gone. What are you going to do? Anyway, Jack got called Jack Ace's High Lancer. At least until the end of our pledge. Another good story for you. Back in the day, we were walking through a small town just outside of Iowa. We were starving. Middle of the war. People were laying on the ground outside. Just him and I. We walking with our bellies empty. We go knocking on each door, one at a time. No one wants to answer. Makes sense, a couple of soldiers walking down the street, nighttime. Some war-ridden town. I wouldn't open the door either. At the very end, we get up to the door. Jack goes and knocks on it. Old farmer, opens the door. He has a shotgun in his hand. And he says, you all get out of here. I don't want any trouble. I lost my wife. My daughter ran off with some man. They're afraid of the war. I'm afraid of the war. I don't want you to take any more. Jack said, please. We're a couple starving soldiers here. We don't have any food. Is there any way you might be able to spare a little bit for a couple men in need? And he said, you go on and get out of here. Nothing I have in this house is for you. And I see look in Jack's eyes. And he says, can I at least have a stone? A stone from your garden. And he looks at him and he says,
that's our request.
He says, you want a stone from my garden? Jack looks him dead in the eye and says, you never had stone stew before? And he says, no. Jack says, well, if I might come in, how about I'll make us a brew of it? The farmer looks at him, looks at me, and he says, come on in. We step inside this man's house, and it's about what you expect from a typical farmer. Got a nice big old pantry filled with odds and ends. Big old fire brewing. The kettle on top with some water. Jack looks around, heads to the kitchen, grabs a big old pot. Then he says, is there any way I might be able to get some water from your well? That's all I'll need to make a stone stew. And the man kind of looks at him. He says, you want water from my stew? And you're going to put a stone in there? That's it? You're going to eat it? So he shakes his head. He looks at me. Jack, that is. He looks at me. And he winks at me one time. And I said, all right, why not? So I shook my head too. The farmer says, all right, you know what? Sure, you're in here. I got you sitting down.
You might as well continue.
Go ahead and go out to the well. Get yourself a mug. You know what? Go get yourself a pot of water. All right. So Jack gets up. He steps out. Goes out to the well. I hear the creaking of the well as it comes up. Gets a bucket. Comes back out. He's got a big old bucket of water. Pours it in there and sticks it on the fire. Then he says, hey Nate, can you come outside and maybe help me look for a good old stone? I said, you know what? Sure, why not? I'm hungry. I'm tired. Why not?
Might as well indulge him.
Yeah, well, Jack can get a little strange sometimes when he gets a little hungry, And I learned it's better to oblige him than to, fight against him. So I go ahead and I step outside and he grabs big old stone, probably about 5 or 6 pounds, and he dusts it all off, gets all the dirt off, and walks inside. And so when we walk back inside, the farmer is sitting in his chair with a shotgun next to him, drinking some. And he looks at us and he says, "You boys really gonna go out there and you're gonna make yourself a stew with just a stone?" And Jack looks over at me and says, "Well, actually, sir, if you think about it, all those fancy pants types down in somewhere like Blackwater, they'll go spend a couple dollars getting themselves a mineral water. Water with minerals in it. Stones have minerals in them. Why couldn't I just not do it myself?"
That's just mineral soup right there.
Yep. So, farmer looks at him, lets out a laugh, and he says, "You know what? Make a good point. Make a good point." So, sticks a stone in there. Soon enough, the water starts boiling. Jack pulls out a spoon from his mess kit, sticks the spoon in and takes a sip, and he goes, "I made stone soup easily 100 times in my life. This might be the best batch yet." And so, farmer gets up and he looks at me. He shoots me an inquisitive look. He says, "Really? Can I have a taste?" And Jack goes, No. It's not ready yet." And he says, "Hey, Nate, come here. I want you to maybe you try a sip." All right, sure. So I go ahead, walk over there, take a sip. For being honest, it tastes like goddamn water.
It is just a rock in water.
Yes, sir. Well, anyway, so Jack looks and he says, "You know what this needs? It needs a little bit of salt." He goes, "Nate, do you have any salt?" I go, "No, I don't. I do not have any salt." And so,
So it begins.
So he says, "Well, that's too bad. We don't have any salt, and we don't have any salt." So the man gets up, the farmer, walks over to his pantry, opens it up, and he says, "Listen, I'll give you a little bit of my salt, just a pinch. All right, but that's it. I can't spare any more. That's all." All right, so Jack goes in, reaches into the box, the wooden box with all salt in it, grabs a nice little pinch of it, sprinkles it in there, stirs it up, lets it come back to a boil, takes another sip, and he slaps his knee, and he goes, "Woo! Oh my goodness. That might be the best I've had ever." I'm looking at him.
Let me guess. It tasted like salt water.
I didn't taste it.
Oh, you didn't.
Nope. But
Risky play. Risky play.
Well, at this point, I'm thinking, the poor boy, he's lost his goddamn mind.
Yeah,
The hunger's gotten to him. I'm not going to try to agitate the poor boy. So I go ahead and I just sit back. We sit down for a few minutes. Jack goes ahead and he says, "Nate, do you have any potatoes on you?" And I looked at him and I said, "No. If I had potatoes,
We'd be eating them."
we would be eating them." And he says, "Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Well, that's too bad. I think the potatoes would really make this stone stew a lot better." And so, after a minute or so, I see the man in the corner. He reaches back in his pantry, pulls out one large potato, and he says, "Here, you fine gentlemen, go. You can have one potato for your stew." Jack, with a twinkle in his eye and a smile on his face, brandishes this knife that he got from hunting the graybacks. Sorry.
Don't worry.
He's hunting them graybacks, has his knife in his hands, with the flash of light, cuts it all up, throws it in the stew, stirs it up with a knife, brings it to a boil. And you know what? He says, this is pretty damn delicious. He sticks his knife into the countertop, reaches over, and he leans over to the man who's getting back in his chair, and he says, excuse me, sir. I don't mean to be too much of an inconvenience, but might I perchance acquire maybe a glass or two, maybe for, to quench my thirst? Farmer says, yeah, you know what? Go ahead. You can have a couple glasses to drink from, but I'm not giving you any of my water. I'm not giving you any of my wine or my ale. Jack says, that's fine. I happen to have my own. So he reaches in, grabs a flask from his breast pocket, and he pulls out the Lancer family flask, pours me a drink, pours himself a drink, and he pours a drink for the farmer. We all take a swig back. Now I know, all right, Jack's family swill, it ain't that good. All right,
No.
I imagine that's what a raccoon's taint tastes like. It tastes goddamn terrible.
I can guarantee you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I punch it back because, when you have the more horrible it tastes, the warmer you feel afterwards.
Yeah.
That's what my father told me. And so I drink it, Jack drinks it, and the farmer drinks it. The farmer coughs and sputters, oh, what the hell's in that? Jack refuses to answer, pours himself another drink. Takes a drink.
As he do.
Yep. I put my shot glass down. He pours himself another drink. Then he pours himself another drink. He pours himself another drink. Pours me a drink. Pours the farmer a drink. Alright. So at this time we're sitting down. We're talking for a few minutes. And he goes and says, I need to go check on the stew. Alright. So he goes ahead, gets up, checks the stew, and I see the man, the farmer, he's sitting in his chair with his shotgun. He lays the shotgun back. I see him getting comfortable, and he looks at me and he says, I don't hate you soldiers, alright? I don't. I just, like I said before, I lost a lot. I lost my family to the war in one way or another. And I guess you can say I'm a little resentful. Jack comes back and he says, hey Nick, can you come in here and taste this real quick? One more time. Alright. So, I get up, I go in there, take a sip. This is pretty damn good. It's delicious. Maybe it was the drink. Maybe it was the hunger. Maybe it just really tasted good. I don't
Could have been the stone had finally started to make it taste.
Well,
You never know.
so the farmer comes in and he says, you're in my house. You're drinking the soup and the water that from me with my potatoes, my stone. I want to taste it. You're driving me crazy with this, the anxiety. It's driving me up a wall. Jack says, well, that's all you had to say, sir. Here. Gives him a sip. And he looked at us and he says, I know what this needs. I'll be right back. So he goes ahead, walks back to the cupboard one last time, grabs a slab of salted meat and a couple carrots, puts it down, and he says, I want to see that fancy knife work one more time. And that's it. All right, says Jack. He pulls out his knife one more time and starts cutting at it. And that man was cutting with the ferocity that I've never seen. He actually took his thumb and slashed the top of it. I don't know if you've seen that scar on his left thumb.
He's shown me that several times, and every time the story's different.
Yep, well, what he did was he took a nice clean chunk right out the top.
Give it that nice little Lancer
Bleeding
taste.
like crazy, bleeding like a madman. No attention paid. Chopping all that meat and the carrots up. Takes them, and he says, thank you kindly, sir. And he slides it in there. After a little bit, we sit down. Go ahead, stir it one more time. And I see the farmer. Farmer comes out with 3 bowls. Now, one for me, one for him, and one for Jack. and he goes into the cupboard, pulls out a fresh loaf of bread, and he cracks off 4 pieces of this fresh loaf of bread. 1 for me, 1 for Jack, 1 for himself, and 1 for his dog. After that, he sits down with this bowl of stew in his hands, looks at it, looks up at us, looks down at it one more time and sticks his spoon in there, takes a sip of it. He lets out a nice, happy sigh and says, "You know what? This might be the most delicious stone stew I've ever had." Jack lets out a small laugh and he says, "I'm happy to oblige. Thank you for housing me and my friend." And he says, "You know what? But I got plenty of other stones outside. Maybe we can make it again." Jack says, "Well, maybe. But now you know my recipe. So either A, I'm going to have to kill you. Or B, you're going to have to spread the word." Next morning, we get up and we head out on our way. And from one friend to another, I'll tell you this. If you ever see Jack on the low and low, without a dime to his name, and he offers to make you some of his famous stone stew, say no. You might be paying for it more in ways than one.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I already pay for just about everything for that little cocksucker.
That's true. Well, it's getting kind of late, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Sounds like we might have a long day ahead of us.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and call it a night.
Same here. You have a good one, Nate.
Good night, Jeffrey.
Good night, Nate.
Hey, everybody. It's Nate here. Just wanted to say that I hope you all have happy holidays and a happy new year. From everybody here at Oliffy's Tassels, we want to say thank you
Thank you.
for watching our content that we try to make as often as we can. We'll try to have more out as soon as possible. Until then, be safe.
And y'all have a happy
Halloween.
God damn it, Nate!